Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to my Monster High movie ranking. I have officially watched, or at least attempted to watch, every single Monster High movie that has been produced thus far, and so now I figured it would be a good time to go ahead and rank those movies. For most of these, I have made individual videos of like my thoughts and my opinions on the film, so I'll have the playlist linked in the description down below. I feel like that's probably the easiest way for me to do it. So if you guys haven't seen those and you want to hear like more in-depth analysis of what I thought of these films, then you can check that out. But we're just going to be kind of doing an overview, and I'm going to be ranking the Monster High movies. If you have seen my in-depth reviews, you probably will know that this is not going to be the most favorable ranking. I tend to be very critical in general when I engage in media. That's just part of the fun for me, quite frankly, is like digging into it a little bit. So this isn't going to be the nicest ranking. I know that especially for like nostalgia purposes for some of the Gen 1 Monster High movies, sometimes that is something that people find offensive. So if that's you, that's fine. Like if you love them and you don't want to hear me say anything bad about them, that's totally chill. I will see you in the next video. But like, you know, I have my opinions, you have yours, and today we're going to be sharing them, even though some of them are going to be negative. So yeah, if you're down for that, it's going to be a fun time, hopefully. If you do enjoy, if you could like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I've got my P.O. box and stuff in the description down below. Without further ado, let's get into the movie ranking. Alrighty, so as with all of my normal rankings, I'm going to be using Procreate to do it, and then my tiers for the movies are starting up the top, genuinely good, okay once, which means that I like was fine watching it the one time, but I would literally never rewatch it. Not memorable because as I was preparing for this, I found myself realizing that a lot of the older Monster High movies, I genuinely don't remember what went on in the film. Like they just were so unremarkable to me that I can't remember. So I feel like that's going to be a pretty popular tier. Then we have the normal amount of bad, which is just like, I didn't like this, it's whatever. Wish I hadn't finished, and DNF, which if you're not familiar, that stands for did not finish, because there were a few that I simply couldn't get through. So let's go ahead and get started with the first Monster High movie, New Ghoul at School. This was a terrible kickoff to me watching the Monster High movies. Like, this was just so bad. I should have said this in the beginning, but for those of you who didn't see my series of like me watching and reviewing the Monster High movies, it's because I never saw them when I was a kid. Like I never consumed any of that media when I was younger. So like I was seeing it for the first time. Now I'm all caught up, and wow, New Ghoul at School was a hard watch. That being said, it wasn't nearly as bad as some of the other movies. Like at the time when I was watching it, it was like, this is terrible. But now I'm like, it wasn't as bad as it could get, so it's going to go into the normal amount of bad. Next up, we have Fright On, which like I vaguely remember. This was the one with like the vampires versus the werewolves and that whole situation. I don't remember being obsessed with it. I should have gone back and watched my own videos, y'all, so I could remember more of this. I do remember thinking that the like allegory of the werewolf versus vampire thing was like pretty well done, and I feel like that was handled well and had real world applications to it. So, you know what, since the only things I can remember are the positive things, I'm gonna say that this was okay once. I wouldn't go back and rewatch it. I wouldn't rewatch most of these if I'm being perfectly frank, but that one was bearable. Next up was Why Do Ghouls Fall in Love, which some parts I loved and some parts I hated. I felt like Claude was such a good boyfriend in this movie. My main thing was that I feel like the way this is portrayed, I should have put a spoiler warning too, but I did not do any of my disclaimers. I'm sorry, I've been a bit distracted lately. Anyway, assuming that like y'all already know the plot of the movie, for me, it's hard to know how I should feel about the film because it's genuinely difficult for me to tell based on how it was portrayed if Draculaura was kind of actively emotionally cheating on Claude or if it was all because of Valentine's spell the whole time. Like there's a very blurry line there between there was a point where it was her own actions and it was always him. Like it's hard to read how exactly that goes down. So I had trouble reviewing this movie in the first place because it was like, if Draculaura was like under Valentine's spell the whole time, I can hardly blame her for acting how she did, and I don't feel like it's as bad a movie at that point. But if she was emotionally cheating on Claude of her own volition at one point, then I'm upset about it, right? And then this movie makes me dislike Draculaura more. Overall, I think we're going to go with not memorable because I don't remember that much and it was just so vague. I don't know. Not memorable is going to end up kind of being a catch-all also for like kind of mediocre. It's fine. It's whatever it is. Oh no. Escape from Skull Shores. This one was bad. I didn't like this for all of the normal reasons of just I didn't think it had a great plot line. I didn't particularly like that it was very Frankie centric because y'all already know I do not like like the original iteration of Frankie back in G1. I just never vibed with her. But the worst part is that I thought that there were definitely some racist undertones in this film. Like I thought that there were some things that was just like, wow, I cannot believe, even as long ago as this was produced, I can't believe that that went in. So like it's kind of beyond the regular level of bad, and for me this has to go in wish I hadn't finished it. I would never have watched this if I wasn't like, you know, doing the series of watching all the movies, and I wish that I hadn't had to see it. Ghouls Rule. I feel like this was a really unpopular review of mine because I hated this. I hated this film so much. Like this was so bad to me, and a lot of y'all were like, oh, this is one of my favorites, and I am sorry, like I'm not trying to dog on your favorite. You're allowed to like it, absolutely. Like it's, you know, if it makes you happy, it makes you happy. For me, absolute garbage, and I wish I hadn't finished it. Then we have Friday Night Frights, the like one that tied in with the Skulltimate Roller Maze dolls. This one I felt like had some fun moments. I don't remember like that many details from it. I don't know if my memory's just bad or if these movies just like weren't memorable. I'm really hoping it's the latter because I'm, you know, aging, but I feel like I'm too young to not remember things that badly, right? Anyway, though, what I do remember, I feel like was pretty fun. I felt like there were some really cool moments in this where I enjoyed the characters. I didn't like how they characterized Claude. Like, I felt like in previous movies, he'd been a fun, nice person, and he seemed like a little weird in this one. But as a movie overall, I thought it was totally fine. So it's going to go all the way up into okay once. Then we have Scaris, City of Frights, which is a really, really good movie for Monster High. Like, I like other movies better, for sure. But, like, on the Monster High scale, this was so solid. I'm going to pretend the stupid little short at the end of the movie didn't exist, because that was genuinely the worst thing ever. But the actual main movie, I thought was pretty well done. Getting to meet the new characters was pretty cool. I liked a lot about this film, and it gets to go into genuinely good. So kudos to Scaris. 13 Wishes. I don't remember. I literally, like, I could tell you the basics of the plot line. I feel nothing thinking about this movie. I know I didn't like it. Like, I know I didn't enjoy it in particular. But I guess it kind of has to go into not memorable because it's just, like, none of it stuck in my brain, you know? Frights Camera Action. Oh, this one's kind of hard. Because, like, towards the end, there were some scenes where I was like, okay, this is a little iffy. But for the most part, I was actually enjoying myself while watching this movie. Like, a lot of these, it was kind of a situation of, okay, well, you got to get through it so you can, like, make your review, put out the video, and, like, do this task that you're doing of watching all the Monster High media. Like, you have to get through this, or, like, you have to try your hardest to get through this, because I really didn't want to, like, DNF too many movies. But with this one, I was genuinely enjoying a lot of the plot. Like, I was actually having fun for most of the movie, which was kind of rarer when it came to all of these. So it gets to go into genuinely good. Okay, Freaky Fusion. This was a rough one. I think I made it like 20 to 30 minutes in. At most, I made it like 40 minutes into this movie before I just had to give up. And I really was trying with these to, like, watch it, and I thought, you know, if you hate it, you can at least make a video talking about why you hate it, because I know that that's not fun for everyone, but I do like to complain sometimes. And so I was like, okay, you know, if you hate it, you can at least make a video talking about why you hate it, and, like, it'll be fun to discuss at the very least, and you'll get something out of this. Unfortunately, Freaky Fusion did not do that for me. I was just consumed with a hatred while I was watching this. And it wasn't even like a fun, like, oh, I can talk about this and I can dissect this and, like, have a little discussion. It wasn't even like that. It was just like, I am being tortured. I don't want to watch this movie anymore. I hate everything about it. So I didn't finish it, which means it kind of default has to go into DNF where it belongs. Haunted, though. Haunted was another one that I really, really, really liked. And honestly, might be my favorite. It's hard to say, but it might be my favorite. I thought that the plot was fun. I loved all of the like relationship interactions in this movie. I'm a big shipper. I talked about that in the review. I love shipping characters so much. So like this one was just so good because I felt like there were so many cool character interactions. I loved it a lot. It's definitely going in genuinely good. Boo York, Boo York. Oh, this is hard. Would I rewatch it? That's kind of like a key question, right? Is like if I wouldn't rewatch it, it almost has to go into okay once. Gosh. It's definitely on the cusp. I think it was a good Monster High movie. There were some things that I disliked though. Primarily I just thought that there were too many characters trying to be involved that like didn't need to be involved. And I thought that a lot of it could have been cut out and then like that screen time could have been used to amplify more interesting aspects of the movie. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have to put this into okay once, but like it's close to being genuinely good. Great Scary Reef. This is a rough one. I didn't make a video on this one because it was just like boring in a bad way. I watched the whole thing, shockingly, but I didn't like it. I just pulled the nib out of my pen. Sick. Good job. But okay, yeah, I finished it. I didn't even make a movie. I can't talk today, y'all. I didn't even make a video on it. It wasn't great. I do think that there was some potential. Like, I think that some aspects of this movie were interesting, and like, I think that it could have been good, but it would have been needed to be reworked a lot. Like, it needed a lot. It was kind of like the bones were okay, but everything on top was terrible. Overall, did I waste my time watching it? Absolutely. And I wish I hadn't finished it. Now we're getting into Gen 2. That was all for G1. I guess I could like, there you go. That's the Gen 1 ranking. Just so you guys can kind of see if you only care about those movies. But Gen 2, I did try to watch Welcome to Monster High. I actually think that the animation is really, really cute. Like, I have a lot of gripes about Gen 2 with the dolls, just because mostly the quality went downhill so bad. Like, you can debate about the cutesy faces. Some people like it, some people, you know, don't, and that's fine. Like, that's a matter of opinion. But the quality went downhill so bad that that's what like kills me about G2. But as far as the like animation quality, I actually think this was really, really cute. And honestly, I was genuinely enjoying like the first 20 minutes or so up until like they formed the school. And I thought that was all actually really cute. Like, not just, oh yeah, like this is fine. Like, I was like, oh, this is good. This is solid. I kind of wish it had just been like a short film or just like a TV special episode or something like that, because I feel like that's all that it needed to have. The second that Monica was on screen, I could no longer tolerate this movie. I made it through the graveyard fight scene, even though I wanted to give up at that point. I was like, I don't know about this. But I was like, no, push on. You liked the first little bit. Let's try to keep it going. So I kept going until Monica got to Monster High, and then I couldn't do it anymore. I feel really bad because, again, I genuinely think that if this had only been 20 minutes long, this would be ranked in genuinely good. It was solid. But something about her as the villain, and like, you know, it's kids media. It's not necessarily that hard to predict how things are going to go. So I'm sitting here seeing her and I'm like, I know what the rest of this plot of this movie is going to look like. Like, I can imagine it, even though I haven't read a synopsis. I know how it's going to end. And I don't want to subject myself to that. So this is going to have to go into DNF because, yeah, I gave up. I didn't finish it. And this is kind of worse. I didn't even try with Electrified. I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't even give it a whirl because I saw the other one. And out of the two G2 movies, I thought to myself, if you like Welcome Monster High, you can give Electrified a shot. But since I couldn't even get through that one, I wasn't going to put myself through this. Is that fair? Maybe not, but it is what it is. So this is going into DNF, and technically it should be going into didn't even start. And that brings us to the two live action movies that tie into G3 of Monster High. So if you only care about Gens 1 and 2, here's the ranking for those. But we have to get through the live actions. I obviously didn't include the Gen 1 webisodes in here, and I'm not including the G3 show on this ranking, just because I do think that there is like something different in a webisode format or like a serialized cartoon format versus a movie, and I don't know if it's like fair to quite rank those on the same scale. So I just didn't decide to include those. So just movies, which means we're sticking with the live action. The first one I genuinely thought was really cute. Like, it was cheesy. It wasn't like the highest budget production ever. The extras in the background looked absolutely crazy. But I really genuinely thought this was pretty solid. I relate so much to the live action Frankie as a character. I just think that they are so relatable, and every time they're on screen, I really enjoy it. And I mean, I like the other characters too, but they were definitely the standout for me. I thought that the plot was fine. Maybe some of this was just the fact that this came out kind of like with G3 coming back. Like, it was like, oh, Monster High is back in action. So maybe some of this is just that joy and like that feeling kind of leaching into my thoughts on the movie. But I can't help but be biased. These are my opinions. They come from my bias. And because of that, it's going into genuinely good. Now, the live action too. First of all, I need to shout out my they, them Frankie. Because again, every moment that they're on screen, I feel so violently seen and just, I love them so much. Like they make me feel more happy about myself as a person because I really do relate to a lot of how they act. But this one I couldn't finish. And I don't know that it's entirely the movie's fault. I do think that it somehow felt even cheesier than the first one. There were kind of a few different things going on that I was like, okay, this feels a little cliche, doesn't really need to happen. But huge caveat here. It's obviously going to go into didn't finish. Like it has to go there by default. But huge caveat. I'm not sure if I'll have posted it yet or not. But I am going to be, or I just have posted a life update video. And the short version of that is that we are going to be moving in this next upcoming month, which is super exciting. However, the road to get to this point has been extremely stressful for me. And I'm not someone who like handles a lot of change or a lot of stress super well. And so I have just been in, frankly, not a good headspace. Like if I'm just being 100% honest, I promise I'm saying this for a reason. I'm not just like trying to vent to y'all. So like, it's going to be fine. I am excited about the future going forward, but the last like 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks have been so unbelievably stressful. There have been so many days where I'm just like laid out. I can't do anything because I'm so overwhelmed in that moment. And so I tried to watch this movie because it was the last one that I needed to watch. I hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, okay, you don't feel like you have energy to do any of this other stuff. Let's see if you can like watch the movie. And I couldn't get through it. And I don't know if some of that negative feeling is coming from the fact that I was so stressed while trying to watch this movie. So like, again, it has to go into DNF because technically I didn't finish it, but I don't want to speak too negatively about it because I'm not sure how much of those feelings were influenced by like other factors, if that makes sense. I don't know. That was probably like a lot more than y'all ever needed to hear. But I just kind of wanted to say that because I didn't want to say that this was a terrible movie and like I couldn't finish it solely because it was terrible, because that might not be true. Like some of that might just be me personally. Y'all will have to let me know what your thoughts on this movie were. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So unfortunately, it has to go into DNF, even though I would like to say that it's like a light DNF. I definitely didn't feel as terribly about that one as I did about like Freaky Fusion. But sorry, this is the finished ranking. Honestly, kind of more balanced than I expected. It's like a funny little, almost like a sideways parabola shape. I didn't think it was going to be this positive. It's funny because I think that when I remember watching all of the Monster High movies, the bad parts stick out a lot more in my mind than the good parts. Like I remember how much I hated Escape from Skull Shores. I remember how much I couldn't stand watching Ghouls Rule. I remember not finishing Freaky Fusion and not even being able to give Electrified the time of day. Like I remember those things, but until I'm presented with like seeing the movie poster, I kind of forget about the good moments. So I'm a bit surprised that it is so balanced like this, that it's like there is still a decent amount of movies in genuinely good and like okay ones. So I guess good on Monster High. I definitely think that a lot of their media was rough. If you're as picky as I am, if you're not as picky as I am, it's probably fine. I just am really, really picky. But yeah, kind of interesting that it wasn't as bad as I remember. Like looking back on it now, it was a struggle to get through all of them sometimes, but it could have been worse. So yes, guys, that is the video for today. I have apparently been filming for too long, even though this is far from my longest video because my cat is crying for me, so I gotta go. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on the ranking and all of these movies in the comments down below. I'm very curious to see like how many of y'all agree with me or how many of y'all think I'm just wildly critical. That's fine. Like you're absolutely allowed to think that because it's true. I am wildly critical. But yeah, I'm just curious. Any case though, I hope you were able to enjoy the video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be. And I will catch you on the next one. Bye guys.